Hi, welcome to video 2. The secret like this to initiate proper foot movement and stabilize the affected ankle to prevent inversion after stroke. If you have not done so, in the previous video we shared how so-called cross-court reflexes can help improve spasticity and reduce the hemiparetic effects. If you have not done so, go and watch video 1. In this video we will share some secrets, some unknown facts, little used facts that can help initiate the first movement, to stabilize foot movement so you can work on walking and to prevent inversion of the ankle. That's what this video is about. I'm Arjan Kuipers. Together with Linda Radestad, we have Stroke.Rehab. We help stroke survivors to find better solutions for better recovery, usually after they've already done the initial rehabilitation and sometimes, or more often than not, have had years of rehabilitation, often in the best rehabilitation centers. So, in this video we're going to share 3 things you can start doing with the foot and the ankle to improve the situation of the foot and the ankle. 3 things we're going to talk about. Number 1, putting the foot in a different position than we normally do with rehabilitation to restore ankle and foot function. Number 2, so we call that training from the spastic position, more on that later. Number 2, making use of the inbuilt reflexes in the spinal cord to restore foot function and to initiate a whole chain of movement that will help the foot to move, including cross-court reflexes that we talked about already, and in particular rhythmic arm movement can help foot function. That is a little known fact, and what is also often overlooked, and that's the third point, is you have to know where the foot is. We have to increase the feedback from the foot, and that often means having the brace off. Now that may seem shocking, but if you do it in a staged way, it can be done safely, especially when we combine all these 3 little known and little used facts. So, fact number 1. Typically we rehabilitate the foot from a neutral position when the client is supine on a treatment platform, bed, couch, treatment table, or sitting. And the fact is that a significant part of our clients that are post-stroke do not have much movement, if any movement, in the foot or in any of the toes. Now, there's one thing we have learned in the last, especially 5 years with hundreds of clients, is that if we start putting the foot in from a spastic position and get them to start moving a toe a little bit for the first time, even if it's like a fraction of a millimeter or a millimeter, that's the start of more. So often we have to find a different body position. So we can have the client on their back with the upper leg on the ball and the lower leg on the ball, and we have the foot raised. We can have the foot in the spastic position, and what we often see is that if we train from there and we apply feedback, that's a key word, sometimes you have to apply feedback with a band, so put some pressure on, or you manually apply pressure, is that is actually can be the start of the first movement. Not typically on the first day, but if you do this many days in succession, many times a day, And we have the first movement, and we see this over and over again, that people come to us, we cannot move the foot. Everyone has tried so much, but it's not moving. I don't think it will ever move. But when we apply this method, we put the foot in different position. For some it is the neutral position. For some it is having the knee bent, having the foot flat on the treatment platform surface. For some it is being on a gym ball with a raised foot. Sometimes we have to flex the hip. Sometimes we have to rotate the foot out or in. Try it from the spastic position, the inverted spastic plantar flex position. Apply pressure with a band, increase the feedback, and often we find that if we can restore this feedback loop to the brain, where the brain starts to recognize where the foot is, and we have a mechanical advantage by having already pressure on the tendons and the muscles that are weak. If you persist, you'll see that often, even if there's the thought that no movement is possible, that you get the first movement. Once the first movement is there, we often see that there's a perpetuating positive feedback loop going on, and that sometimes the foot function can be restored in a much more rapid pace than before, even if it is years since a stroke. Now the same goes for the ankle inversion. We can start from the inverted position, similar to what I just talked about with the foot. So that is fact or secret, if you want to call it a secret, because there is literature on this that describes trying different positions. In practice we often don't do this. So that's one, just keep that in mind, it's very powerful one. Number two, we have inbuilt reflexes in the foot. We have reflexes that make the foot step up when you step, for example, on a tag or something like that. You have to withdraw the foot. They are very strong reflexes that are built into the spinal cord, and they cross the midline, they go to the other side. We have one leg that extends and stabilizes, and the other foot draws away, so it's a withdrawal reflex. We have stretch reflexes. We know that, and I talked about that in other videos, that the stretch reflexes can be influenced by arm movement. We're going to talk about that in the next point. But the inbuilt reflexes can be a very powerful tool to use if no movement, even from the spastic position that we talked about in fact number one. We can use reflexes to do this. What do I mean with that? If you have the client on the wall, this is the pelvis, we have the sacrum here, we have the hip here, we have the upper leg in the air and the lower leg here. We can have the ball here. Let's draw that again. We have the lower leg on the ball. This is the table surface. We have the leg, and the spine is here. Yeah, here. And knee is here, and the foot is here. We have the spastic foot. Foot is in this position, and the withdrawal reflex is doing this with the leg. So we roll the ball backwards, we extend the foot, and we flex the hip even further. So you have this movement in this way. And when you help the foot, you can use a band also, and we withdraw to this side. The client will usually feel that this feels natural and will roll with the ball. We often see that there's a natural tendency to dorsiflex the foot, and you probably have found that out with some clients, that working with a gym ball on the leg gives better results. This is the reason why you facilitate a withdrawal reflex. So that can be very powerful to use. You can also use a opposite movement with the other leg. So then we have what happens that if this is the spinal cord, this is the central vertebral canal, we have reflexes that cross. This is the motor output, the motor nuclei. We have a lot of crosstalk. We have controls from up that are on one side a little bit dampened because of the stroke. But we do have these reflex arches from the right to the left. If this makes a movement, you have increased activity. You often see decreased activity in the opposite leg. With the withdrawal reflex, we see extension in the opposite side is enhanced, but that's all mostly locally controlled at the spinal cord level, so we can use an opposite extensor motion, pushing motion on the other side and withdrawal on the affected side. So we can use these inbuilt reflexes to enhance this process. When you get more control, you can use more individual muscle groups like the dorsiflexors of the foot and of the toes, the extensor, the storm muscles. We can use the peroneal muscles to cause eversion of the foot, and do the opposite with the other foot. Do the opposite with the other leg. Then you make use of the stretch reflexes and the cross inhibition across the cord. So that is fact number 2, where we have a little secret to enhance what we are doing in addition to your normal routines. Just please try it out. It works like magic, but you have to find and tweak to find the sweet spot, and so it takes a lot of patience as well. Just like everything takes a lot of patience with post-stroke rehabilitation. Now, and that is, then I come back to the cross-cord reflexes. We know that if we have the arms and we have the legs, we know that if we do bilateral cyclical movements with the arm, we have a very powerful effect on the H reflex, on the stretch reflexes. We have like a moderation of these reflexes in the affected leg. So we can actually use, if we cannot do much with the leg, we can use arm movement, bilateral arm movement, to have this effect on the affected leg. So very powerful cross-cord reflex, where there are some suprasegmental interhemispheric elements and most likely reticulospinal brainstem influences on modifying this effect. So both the withdrawal, the stretch reflex, we see the crossed inhibition between, if you contract flexors, you facilitate extension on the other side, and vice versa. And we see that we can use the cross-cord movements, the quadrupedic movements, alternating opposite movements, rhythmic movements. We can enhance that by putting in rhythmic sounds into, which have a big influence on the reticulospinal areas in the brainstem. So we can add a lot to our current therapies to enhance the appropriate restoration of function. So, and then we have a final very important point, and I will talk about this again and again and again. If you carefully examine your stroke clients, then you will see that if this is the affected foot, and we see the plantar flexion and the inversion of the ankle, this is the outside, this is the inside, the medial part, we see often that the sensation, the sensory sensation, or the awareness of the affected side has gone down. That is not just because the movement is down, the proprioception, So we have, proprioception is the 1A afferent, that is the highway to the brain to let the brain know what's going on in, for example, the leg. Examine the sensation of the leg. Proprioception, you can use vibration, you can use position sense, you can see what's happening with balance. Balance gives a lot of feedback, so pressure on the foot is very important. But we often see that sensation, the feedback is decreased. It's often not addressed. This is why in the literature we see that with any movement therapy, if we add, for example, electromuscular stimulation, we add vibration therapy, we often see electrical surface stimulation, we see that we have a more significant effect of the exercise. This is the reason why we need sensory feedback to the sensation areas. So motor sensory strip, the primary sensation area in the brain. If this is the front, this is the back, this is the brainstem, and we have the cerebellum here. Primary motor strip here, supplementary and premotor areas here and here. And we have the association areas here, the occipital lobe, temporal lobe. We need this feedback to create a feedback loop to the premotor and supplementary motor areas to initiate movement from the primary motor areas to the affected site. So we need this feedback to create this positive feedback loop to create motion. And if this feedback to proprioception is at fault, which it is because of spasticity or not being able to stand on bare foot, we see a negative feedback loop that actually enhances the dampening of motor activity. We don't want that. So we want to do something to increase the sensation and awareness of the leg. So working with the leg, obviously creating more movement, whether that's walking with a stick, is great. But you have to remember that most of our stroke clients are in a brace because they are afraid to put their foot down. If we restore dorsiflexion, we restore eversion, even if it's a little bit, we can start weaning them off for periods at a time of the brace and gradually get them to stand on the foot too. And that is actually where, if we increase the pressure and feedback from the foot, we really positively influence this feedback loop. So don't forget to take off the brace. The brace is really one of your worst enemies if it comes to sensation and sensory feedback to enhance motor function. So if possible, even if they're not weight bearing, take off their brace, let them feel the foot, work on the foot. We know that mobilization of the foot, balance therapy of the foot, barefoot walking has this effect. That's why we see in studies that it has a positive effect, because it reinforces this sensory motor feedback loop and enhancement. So that is secret number 3. Next to moving the foot, start to move the foot from a spastic position, or find the sweet spot in having the foot or the leg in a different position and getting the first movement, and enhance that with sensory feedback, with a band or hand pressure, using the withdrawal reflexes, enhancing the cross-court reflexes in flexion and extension, and do that on both sides at the same time, or do it only with local muscles, plantar flexion on one side, dorsiflexion on the other side. Making use of the cross-court bilateral arm movements, the quadrupedal movements, where we have the diagonally similar movement, and we have like a continuous activation of the spinal cord inbuilt reflexes, and creating the feedback, point number 3 that I was going to make. And these make up 3 little secrets that are underutilized. You can think about that for yourself. If you start utilizing them, sometimes you see magic in a very short period. So please try this out. Now, in a next video, we're going to talk about another hot topic, and that is shoulder and arm function. How can we restore arm function or initiate restoration of arm function, utilizing that the brain becomes more aware of where the arm is in space. So utilizing the fact that you have to know where you are in space, otherwise you cannot initiate proper movement. If we use this to initiate arm movement, proper shoulder movement and function, we can start working on the arm. So in the next video we're going to talk about that. How can we make the brain more aware of the arm? Some very powerful facts we're going to present. So I hope to see you there. I hope this has been helpful. Again, if you have not seen the previous video on how to use cross-court reflexes to manage spasticity, reduce spasticity better and get the hemiparetic side working better, please do so. It has the same gems as I presented in this video. See you in the next video.